between Mr. Greg Turner and myself with our businesses and what we do for people around the world. I'm based in the Caribbean. He's currently in Canada. I'm a digital nomad. So that's one aspect of my business I've added over the years is being able to travel the world and run my business from wherever I am. And Greg is remarkable. He's a best-selling author. He's written a book, Supersize Your Business, and now he has his own AI software called AI Pando. And him and I work together. We've known each other for many, many years. And I've brought clients to him. He's been introducing me to key people. So we have this back and forth as friends and business owners where, we like to help one another and support one another in our platforms and also our clients. So my background, I come from the industry of network marketing and direct sales for decades. And I'm used to doing business the traditional way, belly to belly, face to face, pick up the phone, dial for dollars, call people, find out what's going on, see how I can help them. And Greg now, he brings new age technology to the table. And so this is going to be a really cool discussion between us today, Greg, about how we're able to help our clients in our own respective genres, I can say, or platforms. Yeah. So welcome to the roundtable discussion today.
All right, thank you, Anil. It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure having conversations with you, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of my insights and also learning a bit from you as well, as from your experience in sales, in communication. You're one of the best person I know when it comes to sales, as far as just being able to build a sales team and to successfully meet goals, and that I find is a skill that every business needs. Like, you can have a great idea, you can have a great product, but if you don't have the right sales team to help you to move that product, put it in front of the right people, and convince them that this is the right solution for them, then your business won't be successful. So that's one of your superpowers that I see, just observing you over the years. And and myself, I'm very good with technology. I'm very good with digital marketing, and I'm definitely looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, well, I appreciate and value having you in my life because I know what I'm great at, and so I stayed in my lane. And believe me, I'm very tough on myself. So I'm always reminding myself, and stay in your lane, stay with what you're great at, and then following books like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I surround myself with people like you who are like, I feel like a part of my mastermind, and I'm sure you consider me like part of your mastermind. Mm-hmm. And the thing with me, Greg, is I'm very black and white. I avoid gray. I don't like gray because I find with gray, things can be lost in translation. And so with black and white, I know exactly what I want to accomplish. So, over the years, what I've found that really works is getting rid of all the fat and the fluff and getting down to brass tacks and finding a workable solution. And so when I work with clients, say in the network marketing, MLM, affiliate marketing space, what I really work at is getting into their worlds and doing what's called a discovery to find out, okay, what's not working? What's missing? Where are you out of performance? Where are you being ineffective? Where have you come off the rails? What do you really want? Because I know you're in your network marketing company and I know the products work, but what do you want? Why did you pick this company and what do you want to accomplish? And what I do is, Greg, I get into their worlds and find out how I can help them, like in some cases, put Humpty Dumpty back together. Yeah. Because things are like falling apart around them and they're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I'm sure you've dealt with clients like that before.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's interesting, as you mentioned that, a lot of times when it comes to products, we always think, I've always heard people say this and I completely disagree with it, that the product sells itself, right? I don't agree with that because the product, like when it comes to a product, no one buys a product, everyone buys a solution. And as you were saying, knowing the why behind the individual is very important. So for example, when you speak with, say you're in a corporate space, you're selling a product inside a corporate enterprise, the person who is doing procurement, the manager who is going to use the product is not necessarily the person who is going to be signing the checks, because the company it's a big company. So the CFO has to approve the financial decision. You have to approve the technical solution, right? The practical solution that will help you to achieve your goal. And of course, there's always a procurement team that tries to make sure that you're actually getting a good deal. So they always say, well, the company that you want to work with is not the only company that sells this product. Let's find, two or three other solutions and do a comparison, right? So there's always that balance that large organizations try to find. Now, each person has their own motivation. And the motivation is not necessarily to make the company successful. Every person is thinking of their own careers because the company that they're working for is really a part of their personal journey throughout their career. They have their family, they have their ambitions, they have their ideas of what they want their retirement to look like. That is what is really driving someone as they get up every day and they decide to go to work, right? So as someone who's having a let's call it an enrollment conversation, but really it's a sales conversation, but it's really enrollments, So you're enrolling someone into choosing a solution. When you're enrolling them into that conversation, you have to think about their motivations. So one of the things that I work in tech, and there's always a joke inside the tech industry is that you never get fired if you hire IBM. Right? And why do they say that? Is because there's this belief that people will always choose the solution that is the safest for them to maintain the trajectory of their career, right? So it doesn't mean that IBM doesn't have the best product. They may have the best product, they may not have the best product, but they're choosing something that helps them to meet their own personal goal, which is to advance in their career. So if, for example, if you have, say, IBM, a well-established company, and then you have no BM, that's just a random name, right? So you have two companies, they have an identical product. You're going to go with, even if no BM has a smaller advantage, that advantage would have to be significant for them to choose no BM over IBM because IBM has that reputation. IBM has the brand, right? It's a safe solution, right? And so why would someone choose a safe solution versus the best solution? And the reason why is because they don't want to necessarily take a risk that's going to come back to hurt them in their career. Because you may say, well, this company, no BM, is the best solution when I chose it. But if something goes wrong, people are going to say, well, we don't know much about this company. How did we end up doing business with them? And then you look like the culprits, right? So, yes, you have to know like what's the motivation behind someone making a decision. It's not necessarily just the things that they're saying, but also the things that they're not saying. So, very important to ask those questions. Understand your clients and understand your prospects, and then once you're able to understand their not just a superficial motivation, but their deep motivation that they're not necessarily going to say to you openly. Once you've gotten to that level, it becomes a lot easier to get someone to the point of choosing or enrolling in your solution.
Yeah, and I can resonate with that because in all the companies I have partnered with to do business, I didn't join because of the products. I joined because of what I was going to get and who I was accessing. So let me explain. And this is actually an industry secret that a lot of people don't really think about. If you want to be a top performer and earn hundreds of thousands and say millions, you want to partner with the number one person or have access to ownership, because the guy who started last week or last month really can't take you where you want to go because they've only started last week or last month. And that's one of the challenges in the industry I have noticed is if anybody's about to embark or engage in something, they either get involved with their sister, their brother-in-law, their best friend, their neighbor, their friend at work, but that person's in the same boat with them. So here you have two people in a boat, no paddles, and they're talking about doing great things with this company and generating all this income, but it's like they're up the creek with no paddle, as the saying goes, right?
Yeah.
They're like just drifting. And so what I've personally found in harmony with products and services is I always do research and find out, okay, how can I get to the guy at the top, the guy at the food chain,
Mhm.
the ownership? How can I work with them personally? Because obviously, if they're at the helm of the ship, as the saying goes, then they can serve me better than the people on the ship. And I'll give you an example. One of my mentors said this to me years ago, and it was really profound. I was struggling in life and struggling in my business, and he noticed a pattern with me because in my conversations with him, I would mention certain people, and he's like, Anil, who are these people? Like, tell me about them. And when I told them, he goes, aha, I figured out your challenge. He goes, let me ask you a question. Just picture yourself in the forest and you're in a deep pit.
Mhm.
You can't climb out, right?
Right.
I go, okay. He says, close your eyes and picture. So I close my eyes and I picture. He goes, and there's all these people you're talking about, they're in the pit with you. And I'm like, okay, got it. And he goes, you're all in the pit that's discussing about how to get out, but you're all in the pit.
Yeah.
And he goes, you know what your challenge is, Anil? Instead of you shouting out to the surface, to the people on the surface who can pull you up
Mhm.
and provide a solution, you're in the pit talking with all these people who are in the pit with you, in the darkness with you. And he goes, that's your challenge. Your challenge is the reason why you can't move your product and service in volume and get it to people and create what you want to create with your global network is because you're asking advice of the wrong people.
Mhm.
You don't have the right system to get you out of the pit. You should be shouting out, "Hey, is anybody up there that can hear me? Can you throw me a rope? Can you throw me a ladder? Get me out
Right.
of this pit." No, here's what you're doing. You're talking to the guy in the pit, going, "Hey, how do you think we should get out of here? Do you have do you have an idea how we could get? Hey, what about you? Like, how do we get out of this pit? I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm in the pit with you."
Yeah.
And and that's the challenge I see, Greg, in the industry with sales and marketing is instead of people reaching out to say someone like you who may have the solution like with AI Pando, with social media, they're talking to their broker's friend, or they're talking to someone who read an article online or
Right.
watched a video, and they're like, hey, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And I
Yeah.
think that's an underlying thing that needs to be addressed in society is we have overnight experts walking around giving advice when they shouldn't.
Right. Right.
Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
definitely. Definitely. Yeah, like success leaves clues, right?
Yes.
And when it comes to if you want to know how to do something, you go to someone who's actually doing it, not someone who is trying to do it. So if I want to, build $1 billion company, I need to get a mentor who has built $1 billion companies, right?
Yes.
And that mentor is not necessarily the person who is like the CEO of $1 billion company, because sometimes if it's already built, their job is a little different because they've taken something and now they have to just maintain it and then grow it gradually, or as opposed to someone who takes a company from the stage of an idea, knows how to raise capital, knows how to IPO, right? Go public, things like that. That's a different skill set,
Yeah,
right?
or
So,
it's like
yeah.
Ray Kroc with McDonald's. When he
Mhm.
stepped into McDonald's, it was already functioning,
Right.
and he simplified the menu. Remember,
Hmm.
they had way too many things on the menu. So
Right.
yeah,
Exactly, exactly, exactly. You got to find the person who's done it before, so they have that experience, successfully done it before, instead of, theoretically having that conversation within a small group. Because it's funny because there's a company I learned about this company probably a few months ago, and I noticed that they have a valuation of $1.2 billion. And I'm thinking, okay, where did they come from?
right.
And they, up until probably 3 years ago, no one's ever heard of them before, right? So whenever I see stories like this, I start looking into who's behind the company, right? Like who's the CEO, who are the investors, things like that. Because this organization went from being completely unknown to IPO, so initial public offering, in less than 3 years, probably. So what that tells me is that the people behind the scenes, they understand the process of going from registration to IPO in less than 5 years. So you're talking about going to $1 billion valuation in less than 5 years. And one of the things I discovered at that point was that one of the founders, or one of the early investors, is someone who have done this before. So if you want to be able to do something like that, you have to go to someone who's done that before. And for me, in my business, for example, that's one of the reasons why I believe so much in networking as well, because there's my circle, immediate circle, that may know how to do certain things. However, I need to know more. And I can read about it. I can, I'm always listening to audiobooks. However, it's way more powerful to be able to have a conversation with someone who's done it, because then they can give you resources, they can point you to the right people to get the resources that you need to grow your business. So definitely, I agree. Find the people who are successful, who are, walking the walk, not just talking it, and just follow what they do. Like, it's really not complicated. Nothing is really complicated once you understand it. So the
Yeah,
key is
yeah.
to understand it, and then the best place to learn it is from people who are doing it.
And I find when dealing with people is to get them to grasp that concept, because a lot of people bring their own baggage and conversations to the table. Like, for example, I've had people say to me, well, how do I find that person? And even if I found them, will they take me seriously? And so what I work at with people is helping them go back to the basics
Mhm.
and working on their own internal self-worth and their own in dialogue, because um, I've had to learn over the years to elevate the belief in myself and my self-worth, because I was shy growing up. I came from poverty. I used to stutter. I had a very bad stuttering impediment. So my dating life sucked. I was always the guy in the corner at the party because I didn't want to mingle. Because when people ask me my name starts with an A. So to pronounce A when you stutter is very difficult. So this go, what's your name? My name is uh, uh, Anil. And there's a and like giggle at me and stuff. So as a teenager, I didn't have a happy teenage life. I never went to my school graduation parties, nothing. I had also very strict parents. So moving forward, business and being an entrepreneur and being in that realm has really helped me find my own voice, as it were, and come to realize that what I have to say matters. I can contribute to other people's lives. And so based on what we're discussing today, I find when I work with people, I don't really work with them around their company and their products and their services and their comp plan. I work around them, you know, um, working around their brand. Like, who
Mhm.
are you? What's your brand? When people think of Greg Turner,
Mhm.
what pops into their head? When
Yeah.
people think of Anil Ramtreater, what pops into their head that would prompt them to reach out to me? And I
Mhm.
think, Greg, that's the tipping point, or the key, or the magic ingredient in the sauce, in the special sauce, is how do you and I become so well branded that people think about us and reach out to us, because I think at the end of the day, that's what we want to do. We want to continue serving people and providing more value, right? What do you say
Yeah,
about it?
definitely. I agree. I didn't even, well, when I met you, you weren't stuttering, so I didn't even know that that was a thing that you had to work through. So, congratulations on that. You're a great public speaker as well. So, I think that's a really good story. That's a part of your brand, right? So, even for yourself, like, I know you have various businesses. One of them is called Goya, which is get off your ass, right? It helps people to really get out of thinking about action to taking action, right? So that's what your shirt says, right?
Right. Yeah.
GOYA. um, so so when it comes to branding, that's really important, and that goes back to the first point I was making about you never get fired when you hire IBM. So IBM built that brand, right? That we're trusted, we're reliable, you won't go wrong if you choose us, and we have the track record to prove it, kind of thing, right? So that was their powerful brand that allowed them to be a stronghold in big enterprises since the 1940s till to this day, right? So branding, when you're powerfully branded, people come to look for you. You know, say for example, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, the well-known billionaires in the world. One thing that they have done very deliberately is built a personal brand. And that personal brand takes them from being anonymous to the point where if they put their name behind something, automatically it gets support. Someone will pay them to have dinner with them. You know what I mean? Like if you want to have a dinner with Warren Buffett for an hour, you're probably paying like, well, I remember the last time I heard that he was doing something like that, it was something like $750,000 or something like that, right? It all goes to charity because again, branding, and he doesn't need 750,000, but just the power of being able to do that is the power of personal branding. And as a small business owner, personal branding is your advantage because when you have a strong personal brand, they will choose you over the well-known company. Because if say for example, I don't want to pick an IBM, so I'll pick another company, say Procter and Gamble. They have a lot of the top household products are made by them, or even Pepsi or Coca-Cola, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you are competing with them and you come with an anonymous brand, say Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is a great brand, right? People buy Coca-Cola products. Um, if you are a small business owner and say you have a sport drink or a new, carbonated beverage, and you just come and you call it Goya drink, it's not going to have the same pull on the market because there's bigger brands out there. But no, if you build your own personal brand, everyone knows who you are, then they will buy the product because you are behind it. So I've seen it even with kids product. Like I remember there's this YouTuber, he's grown up now, but when my son was born, he had like all these YouTube videos. His name is Ryan, and his net worth at that time, he was probably like 6 or 7 years old, and his net worth was about 10 million just because of his YouTube
Right.
videos, his branding. And then what I started seeing is now you started seeing products in Toys R Us that had his brand on there as well, right? And then he moved into gaming and other things as he grew up and became more mature and his interests changed. But whatever he moved into, he had that magnet that brings people to the product. So as a small business owner, it's super important to build your personal brand because that gives you an advantage over the established generic brands that are out there. So Pepsi, for example, there's no single individual who you associate with Pepsi or Coca-Cola. They're just there who they are because they've been there for so many years. You can't compete with that. You don't have the marketing budget to compete with that. But what you have that no one can copy is you. So definitely you want to leverage you to help you to build your business. And many people feel somewhat skeptical about it because they want privacy and they don't feel comfortable in front of camera. So maybe you're a little self-conscious. But again, success leaves clues. Think of it. Who is the wealthiest person in the world today at this point when we're making the videos? That's Elon Musk, right? He has books. He has he's on media. He's always promoted his personal brand. And that's what allowed him to be able to spin that personal brand from, payment gateway products to Tesla to SpaceX, so that's what they do. Warren Buffett, the same thing. Steve Jobs with Apple, he didn't need to be on stage to sell the MacBooks and the iPads and the iPhones. But he did that because his personal brand was so strong that it got people to invest in and believe in Apple, right? So that personal brand, especially if you're coming from a startup, you're nobody, so to speak, in the business world, that personal brand is what creates trust. And when people trust your brand, they will support your brand, and that's it.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, I've been an iPhone user
Hmm.
forever. I've never had an Android.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I migrated to Canada,
Hmm.
I started my own Apple computer business from scratch because back then, 80s, 90s, you could make very good money on used Apple computers. The
Hmm.
margins are not that great anymore. And I even sold the clones, like the Power PCs. I think by the time I got out, the berries were out, the Apple computer that were different colors,
Hmm.
the ones with the handle on the back, you could carry
Yeah,
them
I
around.
remember those. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I got out of the industry. But I was generating six figures a year with that brand. And I remember when my friend first said to me, "No, we should start an Apple computer business," because I just migrated from the Caribbean to Toronto, and I'm like,
Mm.
they have computers that look like apples, like actual the fruit. And he
Yeah.
goes, "No, it's a brand." I'm like, "I've never heard of it." He
Mm.
goes, "Well, it's the up and coming thing right now, and we should get into it." And I'm like, "Okay." And eventually, Greg, I had stores, I had employees, I had a warehouse, I had a massive network around that because I was known in the city of Toronto as one of the Apple guys. So I
Hmm.
totally understand about branding and why it's so important. And it's like this, that was in the 80s, and I still have an iPhone
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
And
Like that. Yeah. It's
right,
That's what it is. If you look at a lot of even today, I'd say like the top 10 companies that are trading on the stock exchange today, a lot of them have a strong personality, a founder behind it that really um, helped to create the story.
hmm
So the story behind the brand was created by the founder. And as a small business owner, you have that advantage. And if you think about it, in the 80s, when you were starting that business, the top companies on the stock exchange were probably selling televisions like Samsung and maybe the motor companies, Honda, Toyota, things like that.
IBM, IBM,
IBM was one of them too,
yeah,
right? And
Mercedes, you
yeah,
know,
yeah. So that's all shifted now because we're in a different age where it's
yep,
about AI and cloud and so forth. But a lot of those companies did not exist back then.
no,
I'd say probably all those companies, with the exception of maybe Microsoft and Apple, or they did not exist back then, right? The top 10 companies on the stock exchange today. And it really comes down to, a lot of them, Bill Gates, Microsoft, you associate with Bill Gates, Apple, you associate with Steve Jobs, Tesla, Elon Musk, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. They all
hmm
have very powerful personal brands. So if they
yeah.
put their name behind something, immediately it gets attention, and attention is currency, you
Yeah,
know?
and the thing is too, with that, one thing I've learned in the industry being an entrepreneur
Yeah.
is in harmony with your brand that we've been talking about is you can carve out your own little piece of the action because the industry is so big. Because for example, I was a pioneer in the industry of deregulation, and I remember when all we had was Bell Canada,
Hmm.
and you had to pay to call Toronto, to call Vancouver, you're paying $5 a minute, right? And remember those days? And now you can
Yeah.
call for free,
Yeah.
unlimited, and blah blah blah. But back then we didn't have AT&T, Primus. We didn't have Primus is probably gone now. We didn't
Yeah.
have Shaw. We didn't have Rogers. We didn't have any of these providers. Like Bell Canada owns a small percentage of the market now,
Hmm.
and all these other giants have moved in and they've
Hmm.
carved their own little piece of the pie.
Hmm.
Like so like Fido. I mean, I could go on. There's so many different
Many have come and
companies.
gone. Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
even like a lot
So
of those companies as well, like we're
yeah.
in Canada and like a lot of the like Rogers, for example, that was Ted Rogers, right? Again, strong personal brand. Walmart, Sam Walton, strong
Yeah.
personal brand, right? So if you're someone who is starting something or you're in the early stages of a company, you can't run away from that. You have to use that to your advantage because ultimately what you have, your reputation, your charisma, right? Your ability to communicate, that's going to define the future of that company for at least the next 10 years is going to be
Mhm.
defined by you. So
Yeah.
you definitely have to take care of your personal brand, build confidence, build trust, and then your company grows with you. Eventually, your company becomes so big that people don't know who you are, but they know the company. But at least in that first 10 years, you gotta build your personal brand.
Yeah. And I think what would be a good topic for us to go over for the next roundtable discussion we have is talking about how you define your personality and
Hmm.
what makes you tick, because that's also attached to your brand. I find from studying experts in the industry, because I read a lot of biographies myself, I find people pick things that match who they are. And one of my favorite is Richard Branson.
Hmm.
Virgin Atlantic, being a record producer, um, buying Necker Island, and just having fun and hot air balloon rides across the
Yeah.
planet and jumping off Niagara Falls in a barrel and all sorts of stuff. He picked things that match his personality because he was a fun person. He was a dolphin, right? And he cared about people. And so I find the people that pick things that match who they are really flourish.
Yeah.
One of the biggest challenges I find with people in network marketing and MLM, and we can touch on this with our next interview or another chat, is they join companies and they pick platforms that
Hmm.
don't even match them. They pick
Hmm.
it because they were desperate to make money, or they
Yeah.
had bills, or someone signed them up and they were like, yeah, whatever, let's do this, here's my credit card. And then they bitch and complain about their choice later on, when they should have just taken time to figure out, hey, is this match me? Is this in
Right.
alignment with me? Is this something I can hang my hat with for the next 3 to 5 years and really roll up my sleeves and get to work? And I find that permeates the industry, Greg. A lot of people pick things that they have no business being in business with.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I, I've met people doing car sales, and I go, you're the worst car salesman I've ever met. You really hate this job, bro.
Mhm.
And he's like, yeah, man. The only reason I'm doing it is, the wife's nagging, and she says, if you don't go find a job, I'm gonna move out, and the kids are not listening to me anymore. And I go, well, look it. Why don't you take some time
Mhm.
and go through the classifieds, or talk to someone and figure out what will match you, what
Mhm.
what matches you, your purpose, your self-worth, your values, who you
Yeah.
are. Car
Mhm.
sales is not for you, brother. And you know how
Mhm.
many people I've come across, um, where I've met like that. So maybe for our next discussion we can chat about that and
Yeah,
how,
yeah, for sure. For
yeah,
sure. We can go into more details on that. And like the power of storytelling as well. We can talk about that too. Like that's something that, when we have the time, we can go over in more detail as well.
sure.